Very good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News here this Saturday morning. I'm Tracy Shilshi and here are the headlines. Rains return to Chennai after a brief halt on Friday. Heavy rains are predicted for the day and the death toll now crosses 280. Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar heads for Paris for the climate summit. Chief negotiator says they are in a better position than the last summit in 2009 but are not there yet. Delhi takes a cue from Beijing and Paris. AAP government suggests the way out for smoke-filled capital, proposes odd and even number private vehicles should ply on alternate days. Major political parties in Nepal decide to amend the new constitution within 3 months to address demands made by Madhesis. And the California mass shooting incident is now being investigated as an act of terrorism. FBI says evidence shows attackers were potentially inspired by foreign terror groups. But first, our eye on Chennai, and it continues to reel under heavy rainfall after experiencing a brief lull on Friday. The Tamil Nadu capital continues to be cut off from the rest of the country. Essential commodities are hard to come by, even though the Army and Air Force personnel are trying to bridge the gap. Here's a complete report.
After breathing a sigh of relief on Friday, heavy showers lashed Chennai once again. Though the water was receding in many parts of the city, the misery of citizens showed little let up. The Met Department has predicted light to moderate rainfall till Sunday.
Chennai is unlikely to get any heavy rainfall, although the heavy rainfall of the order of 70 millimeter or 80 millimeter, this type of heavy rainfall will continue over Kudalur, Nagapattinam and Puducherry districts over the next 48 hours. After 48 hours, we are expecting a bit increase in the rainfall over Chennai, means in the districts of North Coastal Tamil Nadu also, but still it will not be very heavy.
Even though power was restored in several areas that were not waterlogged, tragedy struck a noted private hospital when 18 patients were said to have lost their lives when a sudden blackout on Wednesday allegedly caused snapping of oxygen supply in the ICU. Chennai still remains cut off from the rest of the country, with all air, rail and road transport services suspended. The airport is expected to resume partial operations today. There is no public transport to speak of.
We have no water supply and power supply for the last thing. We are suffering very lot for doing the bank job. Bank works, being a service branch, we have to do all the things.
Receding water level on Friday gave rescue teams chance to step up operations to evacuate people stranded across the city. The military evacuated more than 2,000 residents on Thursday as the death toll from flooding crossed 280.
We've got all the boats on which our personnel, along with ready-to-eat meals and water supplies, will be deployed in the flood-affected areas. We are right now intending to deploy north of Adyar River and move south towards the river and provide these relief material to the personnel marooned or stranded in the waterlogged regions of the city.
Director General of India's National Disaster Response Force OP Singh said the rescue teams plan to reach out to the stranded people across Chennai as they found some dry ground.
अभी बहुत सुधार हुआ है उन इलाकों में जहां पानी नहीं जमा हुआ है वहां पावर रेस्टोरेशन हुआ है कम्युनिकेशंस नेटवर्क में भी सुधार हुआ है पिछले कई घंटों से हम अपने ऑफिसर्स से बहुत अच्छी तरह बात कर पा रहे हैं हम अपने टीम लीडर्स से बात कर पा रहे हैं और कई ऐसे जगह हैं जहां पे सूख गई हैं पानी नहीं है वहां पे और पानी के स्तर में जल के स्तर में भी काफी गिरावट आई है
Waters rose in many residential areas, fed by spills from 35 lakes that have risen to dangerous levels. Experts say haphazard construction work, faulty drainage and a build-up of garbage had contributed to the flooding. More than 5,000 houses were underwater, with many people still trapped on rooftops, while others crowded in relief camps. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
All right, for more on the developing situation there, we're joined by Suresh Kumar, who's a journalist based in Chennai, joining us now on the phone line. Suresh, thanks so much for being with us this morning as well. If you could give us an update on how things stand at the moment, what is the Met Department saying as far as the rains concerned?
Prasi, heavy rains are over for now, says the Met Department. But several localities in Chennai like Velachery, Thendiarpet, Porur, Manali, RK Nagar, Ashok Nagar, Tambaram, Mudichur and Avadi are waterlogged still. India's teams are in hectic rescue operations. Already 1,200 NDRF personnel are on the job. Newly about 20 teams are being moved to Chennai. The Chief Minister Jayalalitha has announced that anyone in Chennai can go in government buses free till 8th of this month.
All right. Suresh, we are also, like today's newspapers, we are seeing that establishing electricity lines is another big problem that people in Chennai and outside Chennai are facing as well. There are reports, of course, of 18 patients dying in a Chennai hospital due to lack of oxygen. And, the hospital authorities, they're saying they really gave up. They said that the generators were not working. And eventually it comes to the state government to provide us with electricity now. Give us a sense of how things stand there as far as electricity and also communication lines are concerned.
Certain parts of Chennai power supply has been restored. And certain places where water is still locked, they are not able to restore power because it becomes dangerous. And 70% of communication lines and internet services are cut off. Regarding that hospital incident, 14 gassed to death in an ICU blackout, which happened at Mayat Hospital, which is on the banks of a lake. It was constructed. The generator could not be operated as the water was locked. So the oxygen and ventilator did not work. And in that, 14 people were dead. And their bodies were kept in Royapeta Government General Hospital. All right. So Suresh Kumar, thanks so much for joining us for that update this morning. We'll come back to you again. Thanks so much. Meanwhile, Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar will be leaving for Paris to attend the United Nations Climate Change Conference. And ahead of his departure, Javadekar said that India will achieve more green cover than the 250 crore ton carbon sink as was committed in the INDC. Now, that's the intended nationally determined contributions, and it announced recently that India had set a target of creating an additional 250 crore tons of CO2 equivalent carbon sink, which is a natural or artificial reservoir with ability to absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Javadekar, who will attend the conference where a universal agreement on climate is expected to be achieved, said that India's INDC target will be achieved by aggressive afforestation, use of alternative sources of fuels, effective protection mechanism, and sustainable forest management. And taking a cue from Beijing and Paris and following a slamming from the High Court, the Delhi government has now decided to allow vehicles with odd and even number plates only on alternate days. The drastic measure to check air pollution will come into effect from the 1st of January next year. And even as green experts hailed the government's decision, its political opponents were not that generous.
Chief negotiator at the Paris Climate Summit has said that negotiations to agree on a draft text for climate change deal to be debated by ministers in Paris next week are not there yet. Two alternative new draft texts for the deal with 38 and 48 pages long, down from about 50 at the start of the week, as a midday Saturday deadline approaches.
La deuxième conclusion, c'est que je souhaite vivement que l'esprit de compromis permette d'avancer. J'espère que le texte qui me sera remis demain enregistrera de nouveaux pas vers le compromis.
French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius repeatedly declined to discuss areas of disagreement, and the Executive Secretary of the United Nations said that there was not one subject which was holding up things.
It's important to understand that there is no one single factor that can be advanced without the others. This is very, very much of a balancing act. It's a political balance. It is an operational balance. It is all part of a coherent and integrated effort to change the course of the economy.
Demonstrators, however, say that even the 2-degree warming target discussed by many was not enough to protect countries vulnerable to climate change and rising sea levels, including many island nations in the Pacific. They're pitching for a target of 1.5 degrees. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, the Delhi Assembly has passed the Janlokpal bill, with Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal warning the centre against any attempts to stall the bill from becoming a law. Kejriwal also termed it as a historic moment for the Janlokpal movement and offered his tribute to veteran activist Anna Hazare.
After a long wait, the Delhi Assembly passed the Janlokpal bill. The AAP government said that Anna Hazare's suggestions have been taken into account in the new bill. As per the changes, there will be a provision for one more High Court judge, one eminent person and one former chairperson in the selection panel of the Janlokpal. While the impeachment process for removal will begin only after a higher court monitored probe for any allegation against the Lokpal.
ये कानून एक कमेटी बनाई गई है, सिलेक्शन कमेटी. उस सिलेक्शन कमेटी जो है वो लोकपाल को चयन करेगी. शुरू में हमने 4 लोगों को इसमें डाला था. कई लोगों का इतराज हुआ. अन्ना जी से मिले, अन्ना जी बोले 3 आदमी और डाल दो. हमने 3 आदमी और डाल दिए. अपने को क्या फर्क पड़ता है.
But there is a strong opposition to the bill by former AAP leaders Prashant Bhushan and Yogendra Yadav, who say that there is a vast difference between the original bill and the one cleared by the Delhi Assembly.
2014 का जो बिल है वही लाना चाहिए और ये सब जो बदलाव करे गए हैं ये ठीक नहीं.
Opposition has also come from the BJP that alleges that the AAP has no intention of making Delhi corruption free.
या आप कोई कानून बनाने की प्रक्रिया नहीं कर रहे हैं, आप सिर्फ एक नाटक कर रहे हैं. लोगों के बीच में भ्रष्टाचार मिटाते हुए दिखना चाहते हैं. भ्रष्टाचार मिटाने की कोई कोशिश आपकी नहीं है.
The AAP now wants the centre to pass the bill, but a contentious clause in the bill could pose a hindrance. The clause gives the Lokpal the scope to investigate union government ministers and officials. Oddeven's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Without a quick break here, we'll be back with more news in just a bit. Stay with us.
This is the great Indian Thar Desert. Not many can survive in this place. In this very special episode of the National Security Series, we see first-hand and unseen areas of sand dunes and see how BSF is guarding this difficult territory along the Indo-Pak borderline.
Where we are in Rajasthan, here the vagaries of weather are so extreme that in winters the temperature goes to 0 degree, whereas in summer the temperature goes up to 50 degree. It's a blazing heat.
Watch a super exclusive episode in National Security Series. BSF in Thar Desert.
Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira.
Barack Obama has been elected on the basis that I will no longer take America into wars, and in fact quite the opposite, I will pull America out of wars.
According to the Indian government, fishermen are not at fault.
The US intervention in Iraq set the stage for exacerbation of these conflicts, and then the intervention in Syria.
Watch World Panorama at these times on Rajya Sabha television.
India's star shining in global affairs.
The professional army of any country does not have faith, piety and jihad in the name of God.
From regional power to assertive global leader.
Sri Lanka denies that these violations took place.
We want India to be a superpower. We have been doing everything for decades, and we have been giving to India everything best we have.
Experts debate the nation's foreign policy.
We should not have any political preference of ours so far as Nepal is concerned.
Taliban were the creatures of Pakistan.
whatever people may say, they were created by God.
India's World with Bharat Bhushan on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back to the Breakfast News. Now, our turn to focus again on the national capital and dealing with an alarming level in smog levels and, of course, unending traffic. The Delhi government has now decided to allow vehicles with odd and even number plates on alternate days only. Take a look at the reactions that it got.
It's a radical step, to say the least, but one that was desperately needed. To curb the alarming air pollution in the national capital, the Delhi government has decided to enforce the odd-even formula for private vehicles in Delhi. This essentially means that come January 1st, 2016, private vehicles bearing odd and even number plates will be allowed on the roads on alternate days only.
We will implement for some time odd and even number of vehicles operation beginning from. We'll make all efforts to start it from the 1st of January. Now, to make it possible, you have understood this thing, that is an odd number of vehicles ply on a particular day and even number of vehicles ply on another day.
The measures announced after an emergency meeting chaired by Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal will take a lot of planning before they can be implemented. On Thursday, the Delhi High Court had compared Delhi to a gas chamber, referring to the rapidly deteriorating air quality in the city.
Massive greening plan जो है horticulture का और अर्बन फॉरेस्ट्री का, वो PWD शुरू करेगी. ये जल्दी से शुरू हो जाएगा because this will take less time than the vacuum cleaning. So next 3-4 हफ्ते के अंदर में PWD will start taking, so that जो कच्चा पैचेस रोड के हैं जहाँ से डस्ट जनरेट होती है उनको सारा कवर किया जाएगा.
But the move has not been welcomed by all. While the Congress party calls the measure anti-people, BJP is taking a more cautious stand and questioning its practicality.
Government must brainstorm and think a little more about it and try to find out a little more pragmatic solution which is practically implementable.
ये आम आदमी को परेशान करने का और सुर्खियां बटोरने का ये काम है, ये जन विरोधी काम है. इसलिए एमएलए नहीं इस पर प्रभावित होंगे, एमपी मंत्री नहीं प्रभावित होंगे, सरकारी पदाधिकारी नहीं प्रभावित होंगे और आम आदमी प्रभावित होगा. पॉल्यूशन कम कंट्रोल करने के लिए आप दूसरे मापदंड खड़े कीजिए और आप लोगों को, आम आदमी को परेशानी में डाल रहे हैं.
इट्स अ गुड इनिशिएटिव, एटलीस्ट अ स्टेप फॉरवर्ड. मेन और आइडियाज आएंगे तो मे बी और सिचुएशन इंप्रूव होगी एंड आई एम रेडी टू फॉलो दिस.
हो सकता है, इसमें पॉसिबल हो सकता है कि और देशों में भी है सर, ऐसा है और देशों में भी हो सकता है, ये व्यवहारिक तो है.
Delhi will not be the first city to implement this formula. It has earlier been implemented in Beijing and Paris to some success. We will have to see how successful it is in Delhi. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
In other news, top leaders of Nepal's 3 major parties have decided to amend the new constitution within the next 3 months to address the demands of Indian origin Madhesis. In fact, the decision was made after a crucial meeting held at the Prime Minister's official residence to resolve the ongoing political crisis. 2 major demands of the agitating Madhesi groups, proportionate representation and allocation of parliament seats on the basis of population, are incorporated in the Constitution Amendment Bill proposed by previous Nepali Congress-led government. In the meeting, the parties discussed issues relating to the blockade of key trade points at the border with India, ongoing agitation in the southern Nepal region, and ways to address the concerns of the agitating Madhesi parties. And back home, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday said that his government was taking states on board for development of the country. He told an audience in Delhi that the main focus of his government was on implementing the NDA government's initiatives and schemes.
Delivering the inaugural address, the Prime Minister put states first, while insisting that Delhi alone can't be the sole mover.
भारत को आगे बढ़ना है तो दिल्ली से देश आगे नहीं बढ़ सकता है. राज्य और दिल्ली दोनों मिलकर के कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर के चलें, एक दिशा में चलें, गति समान बनाने की कोशिश करें, परिणाम अपने आप निकल आएंगे.
In a 40-minute-long speech that was replete with humor, Modi reaffirmed India's status as one of the fastest-growing economies in the world.
आज जो वैश्विक परिस्थिति है, उसमें बाय एंड लार्ज इस बात को स्वीकृति मिली हुई है कि दुनिया की बड़ी इकोनॉमीज में भारत सबसे तेज गति से आगे बढ़ने वाला देश है। और जब भारत सबसे आगे बढ़ने वाला देश माना गया है तो दूसरी तरफ देखें तो विश्व की स्थिति पूरी तरह स्लो डाउन की है।
Talking about MOUs signed with 100 cities to promote LED lights, the Prime Minister claimed it will save 21,500 megawatts of power.
जिस दिन ये 100 शहरों का काम पूरा हो जाएगा LED का, उस दिन इस देश में 21,500 मेगावाट बिजली बचेगी। इक्कीस 21,000 मेगावाट बिजली अगर मोदी कारखाना लगाता है तो हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स में तो मैंने वो भाग्य होगा नहीं, मैं नहीं कह सकता हूं, लेकिन किसी न किसी अखबार में तो हेडलाइन हो जाती है कि मोदी ने 21,500 मेगावाट का बिजली का कारखाना लगा दिया। क्योंकि हमने वो सोचा है 21,500 मेगावाट बिजली का कारखाना है ना, 1.25 लाख करोड़ रुपया का इन्वेस्टमेंट, मतलब कि देश का 1.25 लाख करोड़ रुपया बच गया।
Modi, who led the BJP to a massive victory in the 2014 general elections, also gave credit to the people for giving the NDA a clear mandate. He said a stable government was necessary for economic growth. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
And now let's take a look at the news and events lined up for today in the day ahead. Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi will attend the 31st plenary session of the Indian National Trade Union Congress or INTUC that begins in Delhi today. Former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh will also be joining the meeting. Rahul Gandhi's address at INTUC meet is likely to set the tone for the Congress's stand on labour reforms and FDI in the ongoing Parliament session. Bombay High Court will clear a petition that challenged beef ban in Maharashtra. The court will start hearing all the petitions challenging the constitutional validity of the beef ban legislation in the state. A division bench headed by Justice A.S. Oka and Justice S.C. Gupte will hear the petitions on the 5th, 9th and 11th of December. Polling for the third phase of the UP Gram Panchayat polls begin today. Elections are being held in 4 phases to elect more than 58,000 village heads and 7 lakh Gram Panchayat members. Counting of votes will take place on the 12th of December. The 2-day forum on China-Africa cooperation will conclude in Johannesburg today. The meeting is being attended by African heads of state, which is co-chaired by Chinese President Xi Jinping and South African President Jacob Zuma. News from the US now. In the California mass shooting is now being investigated as an act of terrorism by the FBI. Still in the early stages of investigation, FBI said that the evidence shows the attackers were potentially inspired by foreign terror groups. The latest in the string of shootings in the US has added weight to the Democrats' appeal for stricter gun control laws in the country.
After the FBI took over the investigations of the California shooting from the San Bernardino police, the authorities are now leaning heavily towards the indications of it being a terrorist attack. FBI says it has uncovered evidence of extreme planning with signs that the couple had been radicalized. One of the shooters, Tashfeen Malik, had even pledged allegiance to Islamic State. However, FBI said there was no direct evidence they were part of a network. Phone conversations between at least one of the shooters and other people are also being investigated. FBI is examining crushed cell phones found near the shooting scene.
We're here today because we want to make sure you understand that this is now a federal terrorism investigation led by the FBI. And the reason for that is that the investigation so far has developed indications of radicalization by the killers and of potential inspiration by foreign terrorist organizations. So far, we have no indication that these killers are part of an organized larger group or form part of a cell. There's no indication that they are part of a network.
FBI said the couple may have been planning an additional attack. The couple had 2 assault-style rifles, 2 semi-automatic handguns, 6,100 rounds of ammunition and 12 pipe bombs in their home or with them when they were killed. But neither the couple's relatives nor the landlord had any reason to suspect them.
Well, they just look like a young professional couple. He had good credit report and all that kind of stuff, and it just seemed like normal.
There's never been any evidence that either of the two alleged shooters were aggressive, had extremist views.
Democrats, led by US President Barack Obama, have criticized the reluctance of the US Congress to pass new gun control measures. Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton, too, advocated expanding background checks to those purchasing weapons.
Last night, the Senate voted down a law to block suspected terrorists from buying guns. The bill was to prevent anybody on the no-fly list from buying a gun. I got to tell you, if you're too dangerous to fly in America, you are too dangerous to buy a gun in America, in my opinion.
14 people lost their lives and 21 were wounded in the worst gun violence incident in the US since December 2012. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now let's take a look at some more international news in World Wrap. Germany's parliament has voted to send military support to the US-led coalition fighting Islamic State militants in Syria. German MPs approved the plan for a German non-combat role by 445 votes to 146. The vote comes after a French request following last month's Paris attacks. OPEC members failed to agree an oil production ceiling at a meeting after Iran rejected any production curbs. OPEC Secretary General Abdullah al-Badri said that the group was unable to agree on a production ceiling as it was unclear how much oil Iran would export next year when sanctions are lifted. 16 people were killed while 3 others got injured after firebombs were thrown into a restaurant in the Egyptian capital of Cairo. The victims died from burns or the effects of inhaling smoke. Egyptian officials say 6 suspects are believed to have targeted the building after 2 of them had earlier been barred from entering. On to some cricket action now, and with an overall lead of 213 runs, India is in a commanding position in the 4th and final test against South Africa at Kotla. India bowled out South Africa for 121 runs in their first innings on day 2. Ravindra Jadeja recorded his 4th 5-wicket haul in tests as India bundled out the Proteas in less than 50 overs. R. Ashwin and Umesh Yadav took 2 wickets each, while Ishant Sharma chipped in with 1. A.B. de Villiers top scored for South Africa with a gritty 42, but the rest of the South African batting failed to apply themselves on a turning wicket. Earlier, India were all out for 334 in their first innings in the post-lunch session. Ajinkya Rahane struck his 5th Test 100 to score 127 of 215 balls, thus becoming the first batsman in the ongoing India-South Africa Test series to score a century. India, which decided against enforcing the follow-on, will start its second innings on day 3. With that, let's get you some more updates from the world of sports in Sports Beat. The Indian men's hockey team will take on Belgium in the semi-finals of the Hockey World League finals today. India registered their first win in the league, beating Great Britain 2-1 in the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, Olympic champions Germany will play lowly placed Canada in the 5th to 8th place classification match. India's ace shuttler K. Srikanth will take on Indonesia's Ginting Anthony in the semi-finals of the Indonesia Open. Earlier, Srikanth defeated Malaysia's Tek Jisoo 21-10, 21-5 in the quarterfinals. FIFA has suspended Vice Presidents Alfredo Howitt and Juan Angel Naput for 90 days. The duo were barred from all football-related activities. Both of them were arrested on Thursday on suspicion of accepting millions of dollars of bribes. FIFA's ethics panel routinely bans officials who are under criminal investigation, and the suspensions amount to a formality after their arrest. That's all we have for you on the Breakfast News. Have a great day.